How's it? Figured not surprisingly I've been on a Bucktail binge as usual, and been tying Bob Popovic's beautiful Bulkhead and reverse bulkheads, and figured it's a pretty easy pattern to tie, especially if you're stuck with only a few materials, Bucktail being the main one. But yeah, it's a lot of fun to tie, and I just love the end finished product of them. Tie them any color, any size. Lots of fucks have, put together videos on why these are so great to tie and why they are so great to fish, which I guess is the main thing. But at the moment, a lot of us can't fucking fish, so if you get tying satisfaction, it's kind of what you want. What I love about this pattern is the transformation as you're tying it from something where it sort of looks just rough to sort of between two stages turns into something that doesn't look like a rough nasty bastard. So we're going to be tying this version in whatever that color pattern is, sort of a sunburst, basically using 4 different bucktails as we go down. So dark red, orange, and another light orange. But yeah, it's a fun pattern. This, basically the version we're tying is a bulkhead with a reverse bulkhead finish. That's what gets us to that sort of slightly more smoother finish to the head, like you'd have on a Beast or regular Hollow Fleye. But what the bulkhead gives you is that real sense of shoulders, and they hold under the water. Nothing is going to flatten. So you're wanting a fly that has a lot of profile from all sides, and a profile you can manipulate. It's a pretty good pattern to tie, and yeah, have a cool buoyancy. You can weight them if you need to, but yeah, I just like tying them. So we're going to go through materials. What we're going to use for this is bucktails, the longer, skinnier stuff. This one belonged to Warwick. Sorry, Warwick, I've mistreated your bucktail. That's for the rear half of the fly on the extension, and then we've got the shorter, whiter, more crinklier stuff. Also quite premium though, but really nice, sort of softer, flare stuff. Then we have our, lighter, or sort of, should I say, all coloured, tan, dyed bucktails that are going to give us that ombre effect on the top. Typically these are all a little more crinkly, so still some decent length fibers, but nowhere near as uniform. So we're going to have to sort of start matching that with the white once we get to tying with the white. Oh, sorry, once we get to tying with the colours, bringing those in. Flash, this is Sybai Saltwater Flash, thanks MC. There's enough in there to last me about 27 lifetimes. Then we've got some Hackles. These are just straight up, I don't even know what they're called, but there's some nice long skinny bits hanging off them, which I like to use for a lot of these streamers. They just give sort of nice action. Spawn Flyfish. I've got a bunch of these from Spawn, and they're amazing. Deer, and we got some dry fly hackle, of course, which has never been used to tie a dry fly in its whole life, I don't think. Maybe it would have belonged to its previous owner, so shout out Carl Kiefer, thank you very much, who gifted me this when he hung up his fly tying boots. But yeah, for the shoulders. And that's about it. That's our materials list. So hopefully on the other end of this, you'll sort of see why and how. You'll also see a lot of fuck ups because I make a bunch of them on this fly. But yeah, it's maybe a good example of how one can rescue a fly when you fuck it up, and it still turns out kind of okay. I mean, I'd throw that shit, yeah. How's it? So, I'm going to start off. Not tie on extensions. I prefer to tilt the vise sideways. It just gives more of a sort of a flat, nothing to interfere with over here. So, and you can just grab underneath like that and drop it. But yeah, so first thing I'm going to do, this is 130 pound hard fluoro. Just going to tie a little extension. It's a nice way to kind of give your fly more length if you don't have a really, really long bucktail, or if you want to tie your hackles a little further back off the back of the hook. That way you've got less chance of wrapping. Nice little trick method to do it. I always like to ball the tag end, just a little bit, just to help your thread not bounce off the end, you know. I'm going to try and tie this on 140. I usually tie beasts and bigger flies and stuff like that, where I'm typically tying on here. Oh, with bucktail. I'm typically tying on 210, just because I'm a ham-fisted bastard. But yeah, so just going to get the thread started on here. Once you got it in there, just bring it back. It's pretty hard to find a camera angle that you can actually work with. You can see what's going on here, but pretty simple. That's it. Cool. So bucktail wise, we want to find the longest, softest stuff for tail like this. This tail has been used and abused. Thanks to Ahrex, because I've kind of killed all my really good tails. And I did that while I was learning to tie with bucktail, which is probably not the smartest move, because you end up going to like the best stuff you have and using it while you don't really know what you're doing. So yeah, I don't have as much left as I used to. So basically, I'm not looking for crazy uniformity of length here like I would on a normal beast. I'm just looking for something pretty long and wispy. I'm not going to take out all the short fibers, but I will go down to the bottom here, and I like to just twist. And if you twist that, you tend to find those little ones that are stuck in the middle. That's it. Go to here. Spin that. Sorry, spin that. Go 1, 2, 3. Kind of tricky trying to do this in camera. Spread those around. Got them where you want them. And then just give that a tighten. I like to tighten and wind forward a little bit to see if I've got any flare on that. Probably a little bit heavy for the tail, but space it out a little bit, go back. I'm actually going to try and get that to flare a little more. Go a little bit tighter. That's better. I don't have a huge amount of space for taper on something like this, so I actually prefer a slightly wider tail, because then that'll fill the gap for my next tying point pretty nicely. Right, then I'm going to go with a bit of flash. Just grab a couple of those. like this stuff because it's kind of light and wispy, you know. Just sort of doesn't create like a hard line, it just creates a little bit of flashy bits, particularly the UV, which I really like. I also like that if your fly ends up looking too flashy, it's pretty easy to just grab it and pull it out. So I'm just going down both sides of the fly. Not too phased about how it looks on that either, because again, that stuff's super lightweight. What I'm doing here is going in, I'm just tying in a little thread bump. And then I'm going to finish off in front of that. Come in and just super glue this a little bit. Okay, next set of bucktails pretty much the same. You want to find some of the good long stuff. Which is not a huge amount left, but we'll find some. A little bit more than that, but didn't end up with quite as much as I would have liked. So I'm just going to grab some more. Okay, not got too much, but get rid of the short stuff. Okay, so I don't typically, on these flies, strip out all of the really short stuff. I prefer to leave some of the sort of medium to, you know, I don't want all those tips to be exactly the same length, because we're trying to create profile fairly quickly here, not over like a long transition as you would with a beast. I'm only going to do 3 tying points on this extension. So, yeah, same goes for this little tag in. Now, I'm not particularly phased about those uneven points there, because, yeah, there's not that many straight lines in nature, I guess. And, you'll see where it goes in. It's not such a big deal. So I kind of like to just flick out of the way. Spin. And 1, 2, 3. So you're always winding backwards towards that little bump that's underneath that you just tied in, that thread bump. By the way, I forgot to super glue that last stage, which is not great, but normally, did I? No, I did. Anyway. So this is what I like tying in hand. You can move and maneuver this bit around, you know. It takes a bit of getting used to, definitely, but once you got the crack of it, I find it a lot easier than trying to tie in the vise. I think it's also why I struggle with tying on shanks. So anyway, I've now tied like up to that money bump, which has flared this out a bit. These edges I don't mind about, because that's kind of just natural bulk to the fly underneath. Again, that's why I'm not all that phased about the straight edges. When you're doing your pushing back with your bend hard tech, kind of like to hit it. Thanks Gunnar Bramer for that. Hit it, it tends to just like flare the stuff out of it. You can pull it where you want it. I need to make a new push tool because I cracked this one. So we're going to go back over that. So, unlike on a regular beast, I kind of do this method thanks to first of all Paul Monahan doing this. It might be pretty regular for most of you folks, but I'd never actually used this technique. I kind of went straight to tying beasts with thread dams. So I prefer this for the initial stages just because it's quicker. It's a little bit more forgiving in some respects. So what you do, instead of tying your thread dam in front, you come straight up and through and you actually tie over your fibers. Gives you the chance to sort of pick out, see, make sure everything's straight, make sure everything's been pulled through. And you're going to go once, twice, make sure he's nice and then pull down tight. And then wrap forward 2 turns. That does, gives you all that flare. That's maybe a little bit much flare. So what you can do now is, if you want it, you kind of just go back to it. And you put a few more loose wraps on there. Come forward a bit so your thread tension is not interfering with what your fly is actually looking like. And in this one, I'm going to go for a pretty wide profile. So I'm looking at the consistency between what's in the tail and that one. This thing's going to be bulky, and that's what I want. Just tie forward to that. And what you do now is just go back in there, give us a little twist through. One thing you learn tying bucktail: stroke, 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 and stroke some more, because it gives you a realistic idea of how that fly is going to settle, and that's what's important. Okay, so I'm going to go in and just super glue those as well. There's a couple of reasons why I prefer doing this for most of the tying points on the shank. On the extension, is that A, it's quicker, B, it uses less thread, it's also easier, but it also, you're tying in twice, because you're tying in when your tip's pointing this way, folding over, you're tying in again, so that's not going anywhere. Also like that once it's in place like this, you can super glue that, and that's pretty much going to hold your profile. Once you get up, especially on beasts and things like that, where you're tying putting in a really big, heavily flared head, it's a little different. You've got to use the thread dams, because this is not going to give you, typically not going to give you as much flare as you want, but for the back end of the fly, certainly gives you plenty if you're using the right bucktail in the right place. So, yeah, that's enough flare. I just got to try and find another piece of bucktail that's going to flare that hard, because I've got to tie one more in. Anyway, let's go. So we're going to tie in hackles now. Typically like to go one on each side, and then one on each side, top and bottom. So need to find 4 similar hackles, ideally. And of course I'll find 3. Oh, there you go. There's 2. Those are 2. Nope. One. And there's another 2. And those ones are longer, so I'll use these 2 first. So these, I'm going to use them to add a bit of length to the fly, maybe like 1.5 inches, whatever that is. I don't know why I said inches, I don't know how far an inch is, but actually I do in inches like that much. So 7.5 centimeters. these are just going to go in on the side. I like to tie them in front of that bullet bump or bucktail bump or whatever you'd call it, because it does tend to flare them a little bit. I kind of want stuff sticking out of the fly as much as possible, if you know what I mean. Come on, don't be a shit. There's always that one. Generally with hackles, there's always a whole bunch of them being arseholes. Nobody likes hackle. To be honest, these, I don't actually mind if they don't sit completely flat. They often don't because they're arseholes. With these skinny hackles anyway, it's not such a big deal. So again, I'm just tying a little thread bump there. Go in front of that and actually just lock it in. I lost a hackle. How the hell did that happen? I actually lost a hackle. Okay. We're going back in. I think I might have actually tied that in too tight and ended up cutting it off. We're back in. Okay, we're back in. Get some super glue on those poor buggers. So I'm not going to put flash in at this time point. I tend to do it every second stage on these, especially with that angel flash or stuff. Saltwater angel hair or wing and flash or whatever it is, something light like that which doesn't clog up your bucktail, doesn't wrap much. Even if it does wrap, it's so sort of fine, it's not going to cause too many issues. Right, let's go for our last bit of bucktail from the long stuff. I'm not all that crazily concerned about length at this point. We're actually wanting to sort of transition from stuff that's really uniform and long and skinny and wavy to something with a little bit more body to it, because once we get onto the orange bucktails, they definitely nowhere near, they're not the same caliber of tails in terms of length and softness and wispiness. They're much shorter, crinklier, harder, thicker fibers. So here, again, I'm not taking out any of these shorter bits. I want to start bulking that in. Again, not particularly concerned with the state of the butts on there. 1, 2, 3, again, wrapping backwards. Turn that around there. I also like the bullet time method because it's a little more forgiving. If you haven't managed to get your bucktail perfect in terms of all the way around, you can manipulate it once you've got it under those first 2 wraps. This one's going to be noisy. Move in there. What it? Gee, luck it has your money, I guess. So now I try and pull this to up nicely, so there's no bows in the front bit here. So you want to make sure your thread's in good order coming onto your, trying to do it as straight as possible. So now you can check if there's any gaps. You can pull stuff into place if you want to. Once it's ready to go, give it a nice firm. And now we got a pretty good amount of flare in there. This is going to be a wide body. And I think we're going to go with that. I'm wanting to actually end up with a version that's really wide bodied. So I'm just going to do a couple more closing turns on there and then back onto the, oh yeah, quite like that. But where are we? Okay, so we've basically got to have a look at the dorsal section, or the top and bottom for the fly, because we've got these hackles on either side. So now I'm looking at, let's say top and bottom like that. And come back and find our other two hackles. These ones, if anything, I would make slightly shorter. One on the top. And one on the bottom. Again, orientation of these is not really in terms of luck. They're such skinny little hackles. I actually quite like them standing the wrong way. I don't know, like this way as opposed to that way. As they flare out, actually give you, see what I mean? You get a little bit more structure out of them, which is pretty cool. Okay, go back into the vise. From now, I try and keep the orientation that way. So I know that it's going onto the flower, top and bottom. And grab some more flash. So, going pretty flashy with these. Well, by normal standards for us anyway. We typically use a huge amount of flash in GT patterns, which is the bulk of what I tie, even though I don't fish for them as much as I should be, or as much as I would like to. But the bulk of the cheats, certainly I do the cheating GT fishing, the easiest GT fishing, is in very clean water, so you don't need a huge amount of flash. Flash is probably a deterrent on some patterns, in some fisheries, certainly places like Sudan and such, where apparently UV of any sort or flash or anything is kiss of death. So I guess it makes sense to pay attention where you're going and figure it out. But rule of thumb from somebody who doesn't know very much. But what makes sense to me is obviously the cleaner the water, more natural you want your patterns to be. By and large, there's always going to be occasions in fisheries and people on the internet who will tell you different. Or will tell you about the time the luminous pink fly absolutely thrashed it in crystal clear water with really spooky fish. But, that's not necessarily the norm. That's more likely one of those lucky days. But it is always good to have that weirdo fly in your fly box, I guess. Right, so we're finishing that off with. That's got a heavily dressed tail. This is going to be a fly with a fair amount of bulk in it. You're going to throw this thing in the water. Beasts, for example, I would be on somewhere between 1/4 and 1/3 of that material at this stage of the tie-in, but we're at the stage of the tie-in where I'd normally be 2 more stages ahead. When you're starting to bulk up on a beast, for example, that I'd be tying for GTs or whatever it is. So this pattern, we seem to have got the hackles tied in skew, and I don't know which side they're on, but we'll go with that profile for the dorsal and the toe. So I'm going to tie this on a 4/0. So I've got to find the hooks. Find this on the SA 270 Blue Water 4/0 Ahrex. So they're a weird size for me, to be honest, but it's a great little hook. So little, I'm used to tying on their 6/0s and their 8/0s, but it is a great hook. So lay the thread down. I typically try and tie a little bit of a bump just back from the hook point. This is my brass is very rickety. I need to get my clamp out. So I tie a little bit of a bump here and a little bit of a ramp. Reason being, I want that extension to go just slightly up. I just definitely don't want it to be down, so if it gets pushed down over a thing, at least it'll be straight. Let me see if I can try and... Will that help? Yeah, that'll help. This fast has been around a long time, and I've treated it badly. Right, so what we've got to do here, so I'm going to come in and just cut that extension. So I want like 1 centimeter's worth of fluoro or mono, whatever, sticking out the tip of that finished point. So then now you obviously got to pick a side. That's kind of, yeah. So you've got this feather on the top, so that's your top dorsal. You then want to get that straight as you can, I guess, and then flatten it. Once that's been flattened, I like to put a little ball end on the end there. Ball it, and while it's balling, you just scrape the bottom like that while it's still soft. And that'll give you a flat bottom section to tie, so this doesn't bump up. And you can just go straight in. Some wraps on there. A bit of super glue in there, that's not going anywhere. Okay, so we're going to bring our first bit of colour in here. So, I'm going to go with the lightest of the oranges. Try to find the longest fibres I can on here. So we're kind of going to continue that reverse tar, hollow tar, bullet tar, whatever you want to call it, for 2 stages. So I'm going to do 2 more of those, both of them with this, the first color orange that we have. 1, 2. So now this, all I'm doing on this one though is on the top of the flower, down to about halfway. You can go a little more than halfway if you want to, but just try and create a straight edge on both edges, but you want to end up with this one. Yeah, shouldn't really have gone that hard until I put the white on, but anyway. So we're going to bring some white into this. I'll keep using these scissors, they're fucking blunt. Okay, so what I'm trying to do here is match the length and the type of hair, ideally, as best you can. Or I like to have a little bit more flare on the belly, if anything. Definitely don't want the top flaring and the belly not flaring. For me, anyway. I prefer patterns that have more belly than more top. Just feels more like a fish to me. Right, so back to where we're at. I got a slightly bigger push tool because you got to get over the eye of the hook, unfortunately. And let's get this guy back. This one takes a little bit of stroking. You want to make sure you're getting all of those fibers to run straight back. Not get caught, not be caught over each other, pointing backwards and pointing the wrong direction or some stupid shit. Just want to make sure you got your colors half and half on each side. Spin and 1, 2, go 3 in there. And give that a pull. Okay. I think that's pretty good there. What we're going to do now is chuck in a bit of orange, what do you call this stuff? Crystal flash, I guess. I'm going to go huge amounts, but three on each side. So you're random. I don't want to go full length with this, but also don't want to go half and half, so I'm probably going to go like 70-30, which takes me sort of just to the longest part, or just past the length of the orange fibers. With orange bucktail. 3 on each side. And I'm kind of going on the upper half, if that makes any sense. With the tying point, I mean. I'm going to take these short little bits. I'm just going to push those straight up to the middle. And just kind of grab all of them as distributed as they are. Go back, tie those on top of the bullet. Come back. Just part them out where you want them. Happy with that. You'll notice I kind of put all of my flash on the top of the fly as best I can. Well, on the top half of the fly. I think because I'm paranoid about flash wrapping around the hook. I don't know if tying it on the top helps at all, but if you're wondering, that's why. Okay, so we've got space for one more of these in here. Get some more orange. Pew. A little bit heavy on the orange, but anyway. Three. Fair. Trying to be a little bit mindful of the fact that I might have overdressed this fly a bit. But kind of getting there. Also, the thing with bulkheads, you add a lot of material as you go forward to the fly, which gives it this amazing, beautiful, bulky head and profile and pushes water to hell and gone, but it can also be quite easy to overdress. I went a little bit far forward with that, but anyway. Yeah, so I think the trick, I learned this from Yuri Koski. Not that. Sorry, Yuri. But in tying, certainly when tying beasts, tying them like the first, just couple tying points incredibly sparse. So what it does is it sort of sets a precedent as you go forward. You're always going to get more. You're always going to get bulkier as you go forward. So if you at least start really sparse, that way you're less likely to end up with, just a massively overdressed pattern, just with too much material. So I've got to try and fix this crap, which I seem to have completely fucked up here. So the trick I'm trying to do to try and go 90 degrees to the hook shank. It's not as easy as you think it is. And even when you think you're doing it, when you see yourself on screen, you can see that you're definitely not. You're probably sitting there going, look at this dickhead. It's fucking not even tying 90 degrees. So my apologies if I wasn't. I put the wrong push tool. Let's get back to doing what we should be doing. Okay. Again, we've got lots of materials to deal with here. One, two, three. Nice firm pull on that. Come on, Bucktail, do your thing. Okay. Now ending up with a very bulky fly. But let's see, we end up. God, these things are driving me nuts. I need to find my clamp. Let's push all those back. Right, so next thing we're going to do is put a let's put a pair of dry fly hackles down the side of that thing. So I don't need these to be terribly long. I'm just trying to find a decent matching pair. That is a very decent matching pair. God bless whiting hackles. Thanks, Frank. So these, I'm not looking to go the full length of the fly with these. Probably gonna take them off to about there at least. Don't know if you can see those or not. And then I'm gonna flatten them. Just to try and get them to be a little bit easier to tie in. But they should be alright. Super glue this. So, actually now, going with these hackles, while that super glue is still a little bit wet. Plant that guy where I want him. And plant that guy where I want him. There we go. Just stay there. Alright, those are in. Those are expensive hackles. I'll tie them in there and leave them in there. You ain't going nowhere, motherfucker. I don't even know where the tag is of that one. Okay. Cool. So, we now move on to bright orange. So this stuff is pretty long, so we're going to go with it. So this is the first of our bulkhead ties. Bulkhead's basically another genius Popovic technique. Which we're going back to tying regular way, but instead of trimming the butt ends, we're going to leave those out. You'll see why very shortly. 1, 2, 3. Let's get those on there. Pull that down pretty tight now. I'm just going to splay these around the top as you would normally, but again, I'm just going 50-50. So we're going to do white on the bottom again. There we go. Try and lock that in place. Let's get the white on there. Okay, so I tend to go slightly shorter and shorter and shorter and a bit more flary on the belly as I go. Once I hit the shank, I kind of like quite a, I don't know, a belly on the flowers, almost like a 3D, Bob Popovic's 3D pattern or similar. I don't know why. I guess I also like the fact that it tends to cover the hook point, which I like the look of. I don't think fish see a hook and think, oh, hook, I'm not going to eat that. But I personally just like the look of flies that have a belly, kind of like me. Right, so we're left with those butt ends there sticking out. And instead of trimming those, what we're going to do is we're just going to push them back. And those are actually going to form our bulkhead. So just make sure you get your colors correct, top and bottom, as best you can. And you're just going to pull your thread forward. Pew, pew, pew. And wrap that kind of straight as you can. And that's what we're going to get. Now what you want to do, if you've got this head here like this, I'd like to kind of pull it out a little bit. Maybe 5 and just set that angle. Use the eye of the hook to rest your scissors on so you don't drop down too far. But it's just a case of you're not trying to trim deer hair here. You're just creating a very rough profile underneath that's just going to support the fibers of the next tie. Right. So our next tie is probably going to need to be red. We're going to get one of that orange in, I think. So we're going to go with a pretty long section of red. Fairly big piece. Again, on these, I'm not taking out too much of the short fibers, but you do want to get all the shit out of that part. You know, you can use I don't ever really do that, but I should. Right, so same again. Got our ow. This red's nice, gives a nice flare on the bucktail. That's kind of what you want. But it's forgiving, so. Okay, so here you want to make sure you're getting all the way around again. Back to the white belly. Throw your bucktail in the belly. Shorten this one ever so slightly. Fill the gaps. Just want to try and remember to get, even though it looks like you're you got full coverage, try and make sure that at that point in there, everything's touching. You know, your red and white fibers now are lying like this, not like that. And you got to try and take a grip on everything and hope they stay together. Okay. To the same again. At this point, you could be tapering this a lot more if you wanted to, depending on what profile you wanted to end up with. But in my opinion, if you wanted to tie a fly that has that much taper or is that narrow, you know, you're better off certainly using a different technique. I mean, there's a reason why this is called a bulkhead. It's all about bulk. So it wouldn't make sense to be trying to use this technique if you know, trying to tie a sandy or some skinny ass baitfish. But if you're wanting to put on the pounds, it's a good way to do it. So we are going to do I have to get a little tricky with this one. So we want the finish on the head of this black. So we're going to put some of that in first. Well, it's not actually black, it's sort of a, you can already see that, it's almost like a deep burgundy red color. I'm sure there's a French name for it. But we basically want to finish the head with that, but I don't want the whole head to be in that because it's just going to be too much darkness. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put in an undershot of this to start. In the hope that what this is going to do is create something of a dark halo in the front, as well as underneath, and give a bit of a forehead to the fly. Put a pretty light of the red again on top of that. Not the ideal way to do this, but ideal way would have had me finishing a little further forward. And I could do full, just a really fine reverse bulkhead tie, but let's see how we deal with this one. So what I've done there is gone dark first, and then the lighter color on the top, because when I fold back, I want the dark to be facing forwards. And that should be the one more tie in on the white. Go with a pretty decent batch, seeing as we've got quite a lot of material on the top, but I'm going to go pretty short with it. I guess it's all about sort of balancing what you put on top with what you put underneath. you know, especially when you're not tying single colors. When you're trying to put a white and on the chin and a different color on the dorsal section of the flower. You want to try and match up lengths, consistencies, but then also, or let's say properties of the bucktail. But then at the same time, you also going to, once you start getting to the belly section of the flower, you want to start thinking about how you profile your baitfish. If you want it to be, you know, perfect like that, if you want it to be like that, those kind of things start coming into play, which I haven't quite figured out yet. I only realise them once I get to the end and I've done them by mistake, so I wouldn't even attempt to try and tell you about them yet, but I'll figure it out. Maybe one of these days I'll have an idea about how to actually tell somebody else what I've learned, but I guess I need to learn it first. So what I'm doing here is just trying to get those dark fibers spread relatively uniformly, rather than all being on one side, or because that would be the ruinage of this fly. Either way, it's got a dark halo around the top, and that's what's important. So when I get to the end of these flies, I typically spend quite a lot of my time manipulating the heads. I like to throw down a thread wrap, preferably as straight as you can, and see where I end up. For the most part, I don't ever want to thread down, or whatever you call that, bigger than that. To be honest, I'd prefer it if it was smaller than that one. But, so what I'll do is I'll wrap, unwind, wrap a bit, and just push the hell out of this stuff. You know, I'm also not, if it saves me from having a big build up here, I'll go back in there with a bit of super glue or a little bit of epoxy or something like that, or UV should I say, not epoxy, Christ, it's not the fucking 90s. But I'll actually go back in there and just hold that down a little bit like that if needs be. But I think what I'm going to do is finish this off with that angle, a little bit steeper than I'd like. 1, 2, 4, 5, 6. So what we've ended up with is something pretty, there's a lot of fly there. It's going to push a lot of water. But what I'm going to do now is going to give it a bit of a bath. And then we'll come back and give it something else as well. Right, so here's our wet down fly, right? So I wasn't quite happy. I thought the bucktail was still a little bit steep in the head, but I'll typically back off and tile the fly when I think it's not quite right. It'll be too flared, and then I'll wet it and then treat it with this guy before I actually go in and epoxy or UV or whatever, super glue the head, because a lot of the time you'll find you'll think, it's going to be too flared, it's going to be too flared, and then you give it a couple treatments and yeah, it comes out perfect. So well, as close to perfect as you want it to be. So what I've done is I've wet this down, pushed it back, pushed it back, pushed it back. And I'm just going to hit it with a hairdryer on hot. One little warning, if you've got synthetics in there, just be careful with what the hairdryer does. You want the heat for the bucktail because it shapes it, but some of your synthetics are not going to react so like to hot air. I have melted a few heads like that, so everything in these is pretty much okay with the hair and it'll do what I want it to do with the heat. So yeah, what I want to do first though is just prefer to do that. So I got the air blade now, I'm not hitting this. Also gives you a pretty good idea of what your pattern might look like in the water actually. Not on full power, but on so kind of getting the profile we want on that. Not perfect just yet. I think it's still a little bit too much of a bulb in that head for me. So what I'm going to do is go and just take it out the vase, have an actual look at what's happening. Just give these a brush out as well after the first hair drying. I can see that I've still got too much nose here, so I'm going to wet that again. So we're going to go again with the heat. Okay, so out, that hook is hot. Yes, yes. So I think our profile's pretty good now. That belly section's not perfect, but I think a hang with water will improve that. But we've got our big, nice, round, chunky profile. I think what I'm going to do is go in with a little bit of UV, just where that is, where it is now, which I kind of like. We're going to just go in there and just go a little bit up on those top fibers, just where they are in position. It's a little bit of a cheat, probably wouldn't have been necessary on this fly in the end, at least that way. You've got that head kind of holding the profile that you want. Flatten it down a little bit if you want it. I want it a little bit flatter than that, but you got that nice mullet profile. So pure. And you end up with, hopefully, fly with fishing. Jesus, that vase is still so hot from that bloody hairdryer. Christ. The metal heats up fast. Okay, so see where we're at. The day, give it one more wet, hopefully get those will curve in a little bit. I don't know why that's it's not really doing what it should be, but in the water it should be alright. I think that profile's pretty good. Got those two lateral scales down the side, and quite nice to have a pair of those to go swimming with. So yeah, front on profiles, but that's the Bob Popovic bulkhead. These are both finished in reverse bulkheads. It's pretty much just bucktail, 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 and more bucktail, with of course a few little skinny fiddly bits and some flash, but other than that, that's Kiss Theory fly tying. So yeah, which one did I just tie? So yeah, big thanks to Uncle Bob. And yeah, shot. Enjoy. Pretty stoked with that.